On paper, buying a home in Britain has been getting easier for 4 years in a row. In 2022, the average UK home cost about 9.5 times the average salary. This year, it's around 8.3. Next year, it's forecast to fall again. Wages have outpaced house prices every single year since 2023, 4 straight years of improvement, and it has never felt more impossible. That isn't a contradiction, that's the entire story. Because the thing that broke British housing was never really the price. Build more houses. It's the one line that unites every politician, every economist, and every comment section in the country. Not enough homes, too many people, price goes up. Build more. Problem solved. So Britain tried. The target, 1.5 million new homes in England by 2029. 300,000 a year. A rate this country hasn't hit since the 1960s. Here's where it actually stands. Last year, England added 208,000 homes, down 6% on the year before. And house building is hitting a 12-year low. A 12-year low in the middle of what's been sold as the biggest house building push in 40 years. So where are the houses? The most popular answer is land banking. More than 1.1 million homes granted planning permission in England over a decade and never built. The conclusion writes itself. Developers are hoarding land, drip-feeding houses onto the market to keep prices high. Except when the Competition and Markets Authority actually investigated, that isn't what it found. The CMA concluded the size of developers' land banks wasn't a concern in itself, that it reflected how slow and uncertain the planning system is, and that forcing land banks down artificially would deliver fewer homes, not more. And the figure itself is shakier than it looks. The same house can be granted permission twice, once on the original application, once on a redesign. Britain's housing data is bad enough that we don't reliably know how many homes we build. But there is one place the accusation sticks. London holds roughly 8 years' worth of supply sitting in unbuilt permissions, against 4 to 5 years everywhere else. And it accounts for 27% of every unbuilt permission in England. This isn't a national conspiracy, it's a pricing behavior. And it only makes sense in the one place where the land is worth more than anything you could put on it. Hold on to that, because it's about to explain everything. But first, the deficit nobody counts. Because Britain didn't just stop building homes, it stopped building a type of home. By March 2025, 2.8 million social homes had been sold across the UK under right to buy, at an average discount of around 44% of market value. And the highest figure for new council house completions in England in 30 years, 2,850, sold faster than built, for 45 years. Around 40% of those homes are now rented out privately, often at rents several times what the council was charging. 1.29 million households sit on social housing waiting lists. So follow the flow of a single house. It leaves the public sector at a discount. It arrives in the private rented sector at a premium. The family who'd have paid a social rent now pays a market rent. And when they can't cover it, the state pays the difference through housing benefit to a private landlord. Public asset out, public subsidy in. The estimated value of the equity handed over in right-to-buy discounts, around £194 billion. That isn't a supply problem, that's a transfer. Now let me ask you something that sounds stupid. A house that sold for £200,000 sells for $400,000 a decade later. It's the same house, same bricks, same roof, same slightly damp corner of the same back bedroom. It didn't get twice as good. Nobody added a second kitchen. So who pocketed the extra £200,000? Because it wasn't the bricks, materials, labor, fittings. The physical cost of building a house has broadly tracked inflation. It did not double in real terms. The money didn't go into the house at all. It went into the ground underneath it. And here's how that actually works. Developers don't start by asking what the land is worth. They start with what they think the finished homes will sell for. Then they subtract the construction costs. Then they subtract their profit. And whatever's left is what they can afford to pay for the field. Which means the price of land isn't something you put into a house. It's what's left over at the end. So when house prices rise, that extra money doesn't go into bricks, it sinks into the ground underneath them. Not the builder, not the bricks, the ground. Now go back to London. 8 years of unbuilt permissions. Suddenly, it isn't a mystery. If the ground rises in value faster than the houses you could build on it, then building is the slower way to make money. Nobody's hoarding out of malice. They're hoarding because the arithmetic told them to. So the real question was never how many houses Britain builds, it's why the ground got so expensive. And for that, we need a date. 24th of September, 1996. the RAC Club, London. A trade body and a small group of lenders launch a product nobody thinks is historic. It doesn't make the front pages. They call it buy-to-let. Before that, being a landlord in Britain was an awkward, informal business. The Housing Act of 1988 had already stripped out rent controls and created the assured short-hold tenancy, so a landlord could finally be confident of getting their property back. All that was missing was a mortgage designed for it. Then it arrived. Buy-to-let lending went from £3.9 billion in the year 2000 to $45.7 billion by 2007. The private rented sector went from around 9% of households to roughly 20% today. But here's what that quietly did that nobody designed and nobody voted for. It put two completely different buyers in the same room bidding on the same house with completely different maths. The first-time buyer is capped by their salary. A lender stress tests their income, their spending, their childcare costs, and hands them a multiple. 4.5 times if they're lucky. The landlord isn't assessed on their salary at all. They're assessed on the rent the house can produce. Read that again. The first-time buyer is bidding with their wage. The landlord is bidding with your rent. Same house, same street, two different economies, and only one of them is capped by what a nurse earns. Now remember what we just learned about land. Every pound that extra birthday adds doesn't stop at the sale price. It sinks into the ground and stays there. And the people who owned that ground already, they didn't build anything. They didn't improve the house. They didn't take a single risk. They just woke up richer. Which is how millions of ordinary people, quietly and completely reasonably, came to decide that their house was their pension. Remember that. It's the answer to the question I'm going to ask you at the end of this video. In the 1970s, the average British home cost about 4 times the average income. Today, it's around 8.8. The official figures say the same thing. Last year, the median home in England cost £300,000 against median full-time earnings of £39,300. In London, 10.6 times. Now, the comeback. And it deserves a fair hearing because it's true. We had 17% interest rates. They did. Bank rate hit 17% at the end of the 1970s. That was genuinely brutal, and anyone who lived through it has earned the right to say so. But run the arithmetic honestly. At 4 times income, a punishing rate is applied to a small loan. At nearly 9 times income, an ordinary rate is applied to an enormous one. And then there's the part that only ever worked once: inflation. When wages are rising 10 or 15% a year, a fixed mortgage debt shrinks in real terms while the asset behind it climbs. The pain was front-loaded and then eaten alive. Today, the pain is a deposit you have to save before you're even allowed to start. England's average first-time buyer deposit, £63,000. The average age of a first-time buyer, 33 years and 11 months. Of those born in the early 1980s, 40% owned a home by 30. For everyone born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was 55% or more. But here is the number that should end the argument. UK Finance took every first-time buyer in 2024 and split them into 2 groups: those who got family help with the deposit and those who didn't. The ones with help buy at just over 30, on a household income of £56,000. The ones without help buy at 32.5, on a household income of £65,000. Read that again. The buyers with no family money earn £9,000 a year more, and they buy 2.5 years later. And the home they end up with is worth nearly £40,000 less. Work harder, earn more, arrive later, get less. That is what it looks like when a market stops rewarding what you earn and starts rewarding what you inherit. So it was never really boomers versus Gen Z. That fight is a distraction, and the fault line runs straight through Gen Z too. Among 25 to 34-year-olds in the richest third of incomes, home ownership is around 52%. Among the poorest third, 13%. It isn't old versus young, it's the inherited versus the earning. So, A nation of renters. It gets said constantly. Almost nobody follows it to the end. Let's follow it to the end. If current trends among today's 45 to 64-year-olds simply continue, the share of households owning their home in retirement falls from 78% to 63% by 2041. By 2044, the number of pensioners renting is projected to more than triple. Renting a two-bedroom home across a retirement costs between £200,000 and £400,000. The median pension pot for someone aged 60 to 64 is about $154,000. For women, $105,000. The rent eats the entire pension, and the state pension is left to cover everything else, every bill, every meal, every year that's left. And here's the thing that should genuinely alarm you. Britain's whole retirement system was quietly built on an assumption nobody ever wrote down, that by 65, you'd own your house outright. Housing was never in the pension model because housing was assumed. So a nation of renters isn't just a country where fewer people own things, it's a country where security is inherited rather than earned, where a generation retires into a monthly bill it can never stop paying. And it isn't a warning, it's already in the modeling, it's already booked. Which brings me back to the question I've been holding since the start. Every fix that would actually work. A serious social house building program, taxing property as wealth, ending the discounts, building so much that prices fall in real terms. Every single one has exactly the same side effect. It makes houses worth less. Around 2/3 of British households own their home. For most of them, it is the largest thing they will ever own. It's the retirement nobody told them to save for. It's the care home fund. It's the deposit they promised their kids. So the honest question was never, why won't they fix it? The honest question is, who is going to vote to make themselves poorer in order to fix it? Britain doesn't have a housing crisis. Britain has a housing settlement. One where the rising price of your home became the compensation for 30 years of wages that didn't rise. And where every government of every color has understood one rule above all others, that the fastest way to lose power in this country is to let that number fall. The system isn't failing. The system is working exactly as everyone quietly agreed it should, for everybody who got in before the door closed. So let me put it to you directly. If you own a home, would you vote for a policy that cut its value by 20% to give your children a chance of buying one? Be honest. That's the whole crisis in one question. Tell me in the comments.